And well, I didn't completely embarrass myself. So hey guys, Matt here once again, and today I've got a video about Torchlight Infinite, which just a few days ago launched its new season, the Sandlord season. And to celebrate that, a few of us streamers did get sponsored for 4 hours to run or compete in a race that was the idea was to get to Time Mark 7 Realm Lord, which is a boss maybe like midway through the kind of mapping system progression. And the idea was to try and just race as far as we could go, or ideally to kill the thing. Killing the thing was definitely going to be a bit of a stretch in the amount of time we had, but I ended up playing for like 7 or 8 hours in the end, trying to achieve the goal. But for the 4 hours allotted, we did end up playing. Racing against each other, just basically see who could get the highest level. And your boy over here ended up getting a close third behind Ben and Alkaizer, which I think I ended at about level 81, and they ended at about level 82, 83. So I was not that far behind, very surprisingly. I summoned all of my blasting energy and went ahead and tried to speedrun for the first time in many, many years. Early on, Darth Micro was actually just like cruising ahead of all of us because he just learned how to fucking speedrun pretty well, I guess, and was skipping a lot of things. But then he, was struggling a bit for XP since he was under-leveled for the zones, and in the end we did come up a bit over the top of him. But it was a pretty fun race all in all, and gave me another big look at Torchlight Infinite, a look that I haven't really had quite as in-depth before. I've been sponsored a couple of times before to play this game, and it was a good bit of fun, but I haven't gone super deep, mostly because it was a bit mistimed for a few other things I wanted to do. This time around, I blasted as hard as I could, and I got a lot further than I ever have before, and even almost achieved the actual goal of Time Mark 7 Realm Lord. But it gave me a much better appreciation for how to play the game and the systems that are within the game. So as you can see, I'm currently just going through the campaign, and it is on the new sort of class or subclass. So the game itself has a lot of different classes. At this stage, it's been getting work, every 2 or 3 months with lots of stuff, lots of developments, lots of updates, and it retains a lot of those updates season to season. And at this point, there's like 20 classes, so this is the newest little subclass one. So this is the one that you got to pay for if you want to play it immediately, but eventually, after the next season, it'll become free. So all the other ones are free, and there's a lot of different classes to do. This one is the one that you can see on the banner. I think Blasphemer Thea is what it's called. Pretty nice looking little waifu thing, and cruising through the campaign with this here, the new season mechanic that pops off and spawns a bunch of enemies that you then get lots of loot off of, lots of XP off of, but at the same time it gives you resources to then build a town that operates to give you lots of, sustainable loot, currency, all kinds of stuff. So it's a bit of a big season mechanic in its own right, but we did mostly have to skip it for the purposes of the race, and go back and look at it later. But yeah, basically this game gets a lot of updates every 2 or 3 months, season by season, with like big league mechanics, big balance passes, reworks, new bosses, all kinds of stuff. It's actually pretty crazy and fairly impressive with the amount they managed to do, considering this game is not really that shallow at all. It is fairly deep for its systems for ARPG. It has lots of builds, lots of sort of crafting, lots of end game grind, pinnacle sort of challenges, and all that sort of stuff. It's actually got quite a lot of systems that might actually surprise you, and a lot of people from my chat do play this game very regularly, and it's one of their favorite ARPGs, and it's no real mystery why once you get into it. The campaign itself is pretty nice, it's pretty cruisy. It has a few cutscenes, it's got a bit of personality to look at from time to time, and it flows well. It's got some good side zones and different new zones that have mechanics and stuff you might not see in other ARPGs, which is pretty cool for a campaign to have. So it's fairly engaging for the few hours you have to go through it. Typically, I think it's taken me like 6 or 7 hours to actually go through it from the start, but since we were super turbo blasting, I think it only took me like 2.5, maybe 3 hours to get through the whole thing. And then we started the endgame mapping system, which yeah, it's a bit of a thing to grasp, and there's a lot of progress and progression to go through. But this time around, with the help of my chat and some bit of extra backseating, I managed to do it pretty quickly and almost achieve the time Mark 7 goal, which kind of like tiers, you know, you got to get through certain tiers, you got to kill certain bosses, and then you can move up to the next one. And given the time frame and the goal of like fully speed running through this sort of stuff, I wasn't really capable of upgrading my gear fast enough to progress through these later tiers, because it definitely ramps. Pretty much no part of the game is particularly easy until you get to the really high-end sort of builds that do become much more autopilot, and kind of the goal of this is to become as blaster as possible and have sort of like an RF style build or an auto bomber style build where you are just destroying screens by yourself. With almost no effort, no input. But for a lot of the game, there is definitely input. Even in my current character, this is like my first map as soon as I get to the end game. It doesn't really look like I'm doing stuff because it kind of seems autopilot-y, but that's mostly because the cast speed and the animations and stuff are so smooth, or there's very little friction is what I would say. So all the casts are actually me casting. I'm blinking a lot. I'm using a single target spell. Yeah, it's still pretty engaging. By the time you get to the higher end build of this type of character, you can just run around and kind of autopilot blast everything. And that is the goal. The goal is to get fat loot, collect, you know, impressive items, and then get to a point where your character is decimating screens, very fast movement speed, blinking around all over the place. I've yet to hit that sort of threshold, but there is, as you can see, lots of different support gems, lots of customization, and just, yeah, it's honestly some pretty deep systems for you to either go through yourself or, you know, follow someone's past example. And there is a sort of leaderboard for you to also look over if you really want to. There's crafting in this game that isn't too hard to grasp, but isn't, you know, completely bare bones either. It takes a few grinding materials, but there's some decent determinism to go with it. You got decent odds of hitting what you want, but sometimes you're gonna have to fish for a few modifiers, especially if you want some min-max, and especially on the high end of crafting gear, because the gear that I got to was still pretty basic, you know, like epic level stuff, but then you can get to much higher tier and much higher tier modifiers and affixes. But it is definitely a bit of a crafting system that you can get into and help min-max your characters. Likewise with the Atlas system, you can start to customize your end game gameplay, and it's the first time I kind of got a bit deeper into this one. Most of my stuff was going towards just trying to get more waystone or map drops so that I can keep progressing faster and faster, because speed was the name of the game. Also engaged with some of the past league mechanics that I didn't get a chance to do because I was preoccupied with other stuff, and this one is one of the absolute crowd pleasers, crowd favorites, as you know, you can kind of tell why. But it's actually a pretty cool little mechanic when I got into it, because it's a sort of tarot card reading where you build your own little mini game and then have a fight to do at the end and get fat loot. And it's kind of up to you as to how much you want to grind it, as to how much you want to, you know, min-max that thing. And then after about 6 hours, I think it was, I watched a bit of Ben attempting the time Mark 7 Rift Lord, because I was still going to be at least 2 hours away from it, I think, even with as fast as I was trying to go. And this is actually a pretty lofty goal. This boss is pretty advanced for the level of mapping we're at, so it's a big step up, and it's the first real big step up because it's still a very nothing boss compared to some of the very largest bosses that this game has to offer. So after about 7 hours, I did check the leaderboards, and this is something you can do to see where you're at and also compare builds and yoink other people's builds and see what they're doing. And lo and behold, I was number 4 on the entire server of solo self-found. That said, not too many people actually play this game self-found. The trade server is much more robust, and the position I was in, if you went to trade, you'd see I was something like 5,000. So instead of being number 4 in SSF, I'd be about something like 5,000 on the trade server, and that was after a day of the season being up. So I was still pretty proud of myself for how I performed this time around, and got a much better understanding and grasp for Torchlight Infinite this time around. This is like my last big Rift Lord fight before moving into Time Mark 6, I think it was. And after that, I would have still had probably another hour or two before I could even attempt the large boss that they would have liked us to attempt. So all in all, I had a pretty good time. I was pleasantly surprised with how I did in the race, and showed that I wasn't completely old and washed up, but just gave me another big appreciation for the systems involved in Torchlight Infinite. This is the newest season, the Sandlord one. I will most likely be trying out the next one if we've got time, sponsor or not. I think it's going to be worth my time. Granted, it doesn't clash too much with some other things I may want to do. So if you want to check it out, by all means, it's free to play. You can check the link that I've got in my description, and give it a shot and see how you go. So maybe you can do better than me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.